what we're going to be looking at now are classes. And what we're going to just do is we're just going to delete some of the code that we've already got in here. So we don't need that anymore. And classes, they are like advanced structures. And classes are very useful. Very useful things indeed. So, our class. We're going to create a basic lift class. So, a public class lift class, like so. Oops. Now, firstly we declare our variables. What variables do you think a lift could have? Well, I would say it would have a int max level, the max current floor or level it can get to. A public int min level, the minimum level it can go to, and a public int current floor, the current floor it is on, right? Now, a class needs a constructor, so we're going to create our constructor. So it's public, so we can access it, and, well, it would be, what would it be called? Lift class, open and close brackets, like so. Then I want to be able to set, when I build this class, I want to be able to set its minimum level and its maximum level. So I'm going to say I require an int mi level for min level, and an int ma level for the max level. And I'm going to say that min level equals mi level, and max level equals ma level. And then I'm going to say that the current floor equals the minimum floor, like so. Then, what abilities does a lift have? Well, it can move up a floor, it can move down a floor, and it also tells you what floor it's on. So we're going to have a public void, because it doesn't return anything, move up. And then I'm going to create a public void move down, and a public void get current floor, like so. And then, in fact, this one will not be a void, but I'll get back to that in a minute. So move up, what's it going to do? Well, firstly it needs to check the current floor, and if the current floor is as high as the max floor, it can't move up. So if current floor is less than max level current floor plus plus, move down. If current floor is greater than the minimum level, current floor minus minus. Now get floor. I want to output get floor, and I want to be able to access it. And the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to show you something. Remember how we set current floor to public? Well, I'm going to make this private, which means only the lift class can access it. So only using either writing code in the move up, the move down, the get current floor, or the lift constructor can I access the current floor. I cannot access it outside of this class. So you might say, well, what's the purpose of having a private class? Well, it's so that we can't mess around with code we shouldn't, and also there are ways that we can actually access it indirectly. What I'm going to say is where we've put get current floor and it says void, I'm going to change this to say int, which is saying that get current floor, not only can we call it as a procedure, it's also a variable. And I'm going to say return current floor, and I will show you exactly what happens later on. So now we've created our class, let's declare it as a variable. So we have a lift class, I'm going to call it lift1, like so. Now I'm going to initialize the class lift1 equals a new lift class. Minimum level 0, maximum level 10. Like so. And here we have what happens? So this line of code gets run. What happens? Well, this code gets run, and min level gets set to MI level, max level gets set to MA level, current floor gets set to the minimum level. And that will happen for our lift1 variable. Then, what I can do is I can say, update, if keyboard.isKey up, keys.up, lift1, lift1 dot up, move up, like so. If keyboard.isKey down, oh sorry, isKey, that should be an isKey down and not up, so if you'd noticed that, I do apologise. Keys.down, lift1 dot move down. And if keyboard dot isKey down, keys dot, I'm going to say G, then I want to get the current floor. But, oops, so I'm going to say sprite batch dot game. I'm going to move this. Sorry, I'm getting a bit confused now myself. I'm going to move this into the draw, and I'm going to say in the game batch that if is keyboard dot isKey down keys dot G, game batch dot draw string and font game font 1, and I'm going to output lift1 dot get current floor dot toString vector new vector 2 100 100 and color white. Watch what happens now. Oops, I've made a mistake. isKey down. Got the W in the wrong place. So, if I press G, I've got an error. Let's see. I've put the game batch outside the game batch.end, so we'll try that again. So if I press G, it will get the current floor, in this case 0, as you can see. So if I press up and then get the current floor, as you can see, it's going up and down. But the problem is, it's always happening when I press up because I'm not checking the last input. So, and L keyboard.isKey down, keys.up, and do the same with this one. L keyboard isKey down, keys.down. So I'm just going to hold G down, and as you can see, oops, for some reason that's still doing that, because that should be is if keys up. I apologise for all the mistakes I'm making today. My brain must not be with it. Now I can go up one floor at a time. I get to the maximum level, level 10, I can't go up anymore, or I can go down and I get to 0 and I can't go down anymore. The only difference of the code I'm going to make is that I'm always going to output the current floor. Now I'm going to explain what happens. Firstly, we'll start with the up and down. So move up, when we press up, move up gets called. And this is for lift1. So it checks the current floor is less than the maximum floor, and if it is, it adds 1. When we press move down, it checks the current floor is greater than the minimum floor, and if so, subtracts 1 from the minimum floor. Now this is the interesting bit, the get current floor. Well, what happens is we're saying that get current floor is an integer. So when we run get current floor, it's like having a variable, but we can control what code gets run. And return passes some data into our variable, in effect. So when this happens, when we say get current floor and put the open and close bracket on the end, it runs whatever code's in here and it returns current floor and saves that in our variable. So it's like a variable which we can control what happens when we call it. So when we call the variable, in this case get current floor, it gives us an integer which I then convert to a string with the .toString. Now if you haven't got that, I apologise, it's the simplest way that I can think to explain it. But we've got to all this work to create a class when we could have probably programmed it simpler without one. Well, let's show you the power of a class. I am now going to go lift class lift2, lift class lift 3, and I'm going to say that lift 2 equals a new lift class 4 and 7, and lift 3 equals a new lift class 10 to 16. And then I'm just going to do some more of this. I'm just going to copy these and say we'll use W and S instead of up and down, and we will also use, let's say, R and F for lift 3. Oops, it should be R. And then I'm going to say lift 2, lift 2, lift 3, and lift 3. And then we're going to output the current floors for each individual lift. So we'll output lift 2, oops, and lift 3. And I'll just change the positions like so. So here we have lift 1, lift 2, lift 3. If I press down on lift 1, I can't go any further up, but I can go up. And of course I've got my maximum. If I do the same with lift 2, again I've got my minimums and maximums, and I can do the same with lift 3. Now immediately you can see how much quicker a class is than using standard variables and not using classes when it comes to more than one type of the same thing, i.e. lift 3. It was so easy to create lifts 2 and 3 that I could create 100 lifts with relatively no extra code. It's just the initial class that takes the time to get built. And of course, because you're not copying and pasting and you're using the same class, if it works for one class, it will work for all of them. Now, a little project for you to try and do. Create a little class that has a constructor and that also has a position variable. Just a position variable. We'll keep it simple. And then create it so that it can move left and move right, move up and move down. And then it will draw an image on the screen somewhere, like just doing it generally. So then you can have it that by pressing left, right, up and down, it will call the player or whatever class you're going to call it dot up, dot down, dot left, dot right to move the character individually. And that is just a little test to see if you actually do understand classes and their power.